Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to lecture 59. In the last lecture we discussed the good practices, best practices, few of the examples, so that you can get some idea that what could be way forward for making urban governance and management a better practice. Today, in the verge of the completion of the course, in the 59th lecture, we will discuss about the reflective learning and the excellence. And we have already discussed about the capacity building training and learning in some of the modules earlier in some weeks, but still we have kept this particular session on reflective learning and excellence, because I felt that some of the principles of reflective learning will make you equipped with tools and methods for the continuous learning and continuous excellence. So, in today's lecture I will be discussing that why continuous learning is important and how it is related to excellence. Then we will discuss about the reflective learning, what is reflective learning, and what could be the methods and tools for the reflective learning, how it can help you. Some of the initiative by the Government of India in reflective learning and what could be your role. So, let us start with the continuous learning. Now, why continuous learning and excellence is important? Now, learning is a event which takes place, and it can take place at any time. Sometimes we do the degree level studies, school level studies, or postgraduate level studies. So, based on that we become deputed or we got the employment, we do our job. But after that, when we do our job at the profession for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, the technology changes, and there are a lot of other changes which happens, which makes us inevitable to change ourselves in terms of our knowledge, skill and attitude towards our profession. So, if we take this word changes, there are many changes which happen concurrently. Changes. So, one is technological changes, for example, please recall your our transactions during the offline period. Now we do all the transactions mostly on the online and the e-platform. So, that time the transaction was completely different, and after this telecommunication and internet platform has come, now we do all the transactions on online platform. The whole knowledge, skills and attitude towards the business, towards the transaction has changed. So, with this the governance, as we discussed earlier as e-governance, also emerge, and as the e-governance it satisfied the areas of urban infrastructure and also basic services given by the urban local bodies. Now, apart from the technological change, there are the changes in the policy. Now, why policy change? Policy can change if there is a significant change in the international scenario, if there is a significant change in the political setup or social setup, there could be policy change, and because of the policy change it leads to multiple reforms at the government level, and we have talked already several reforms, and because of the reforms we need to change, we need to learn new things. And also in the financial sector, the earlier paradigm, as I told before also, to provide some grant, to provide some loan, and now the paradigm for the urban development is to facilitate the development. So, government is trying to facilitate the development by enabling better legislation, by enabling better method procedures including e-governance, so that the urban local bodies and development authorities, they can perform in a better way. So, in the financial sector, the transition from the provisions to facilitation is important. So, in this facilitation paradigm, getting equipped with knowledge and skill for the urban local bodies and development authorities are important, but it is only possible if you can generate your own resources. We had long discussions in one particular week about the resources and finances. So, this changes which happened in last 20 or 30 years, where municipalities and urban development authorities, they are now it is essential to earn their own resources and revenues to run the basic services and the urban infrastructure. For that, it is essential knowledge which is required to know how to earn revenue. And as with this, I should mention one more thing, that with this paradigm it comes about a competitive. Since the resources are limited at the government level, at the other levels, so to get the resources by the urban local bodies and the development authorities, it has become a competitive situation, and every urban local body, they are trying to get the funding based on the merit. So, since it is competitive, the knowledge is something which matters a most to get the project, to get the funding for the service delivery at your local level. So, technological change, policy change, financial change, and also there could be changes like organizational change. You know very well that in after the 74th Amendment Act and after the municipal acts in every states are enacted, the local bodies are now local governments, and local governments, they have the roles, responsibility and mandate to provide the basic urban services to the citizens of India. Now, this organizational change brought the new mandate and new responsibility at the local level also. So, you need to get the adequate knowledge and skills. Now, why this existing knowledge and existing skills are not sufficient? Because since I have told you that it has brought some competitive scenario, in this competitive scenario, the traditional work or traditional practices of the urban government may fail, because the urban sector is also becoming more and more complex, more and more difficult to manage. So, you need to learn from the better practices and best practices. That is why we are discussing about the continuous learning. Whatever you have learned in 2000, those could be defunct in 2018, and maybe whatever you are discussing in 2018, after some time 2030, it could be defunct or lack of use of that knowledge. So, it is important and essential to upgrade your knowledge and skill continuously. Now, question is it a concern for the organization, or it is a concern for yourself as a particular? Now, I start with that concern, that it is the concern for yourself, because as an urban manager, you are working at the municipal body or the local level or other organization. Unless you upgrade your knowledge and skill continuously, after some time you will be poor in terms of knowledge, and in 21st century it is the knowledge poverty which matters most, not the money poverty or not the financial poverty. So, if you have the knowledge, you can take the lead from the municipality, you can excel in the municipality, you can contribute for your organization can grow, you can grow. So, it is the knowledge wealth which can sustain yourself and your organization, and that can bring the excellence. So, excellence is not a destination, excellence is a journey. So, you have to make a habit of making excellence through continuous learning. So, having said that, let me discuss with you that what is reflective learning. Now, we have talked about the learning, and we talked earlier that in learning there are three components. One is knowledge, skill and attitude. And so this triangle we discussed. Now if you please follow the term knowledge. What is knowledge? Knowledge is consisting of norms, theory, principles and also experiences. Now norms, theory and principles, there are some works and there are some existing norms, existing theory, existing principles, existing mandates which we follow for urban development and urban governance. But what about the experiences? Have we developed or have we collected enough experiences from the urban sector? Probably not. So that is why we need to learn from the experiences of the other. For medical science, a drug takes multiple years, at least one decade to apply to some animal and to bring that in the market. But in urban development, it is so urgent that we have to apply some of the principles, some of the norms in the urban development. We do not have that much of time to experiment, and then after becoming assured, we cannot apply. So our learning in urban sector is continuous, and that is why to minimize the error, to minimize the wastage of the resources, it is very essential to learn from the earlier experiences, the past experiences, so that we do not make the or do not repeat the similar error, similar mistakes in our job. So objective of the learning from the experience is to reduce errors or mistakes and not to repeat same errors, okay, and definitely bring better result than the earlier practice. Okay. So if you see that experience which enables us to reduce the errors, mistakes, not to repeat the same errors and to bring better result than the earlier experiences. So that is the most important objective in studying from the experiences of the others, and which is called as reflective learning. So please follow the term reflective. It is like when the practice is reflected in others learning and practice. Now you can call it as a motivation, you can call it as a inspiration, or you can call it as a follow, but whatever you say, it is the learning from the earlier and the past experiences. So that is the reflective learning, which is something very special and which is applicable for the application oriented subject like urban development and urban governance, where we are learning in a day to day basis, and it is so fast changing world. But as a matter of fact, the number of documentation, number of the learning which is there in the public domain is very less. There are lot of good practices, best practices and the better learning which is there within some of the municipalities, some of the corners in the country, but maybe those are not documented. So the objective of the reflective learning will be not only learning from the others' experience, also sometimes to share our experiences for the other learning. So second is, it is not only the reduce errors and mistakes, share our experience for other learning. Okay. Now how we can develop a environment of the reflective learning, what could be the methods and the tools, and how we can develop that? Whether the reflective learning mechanism is same with the classroom learning, like we are continuing a course in online platform, can reflective learning could be a platform where online platform also emerges and online platform can be used for reflective learning? Let us see that what could be the platforms, tools of the reflective learning. Now first tool is that how we can develop a reflective learning is that you can develop it through the reading of documented cases. Now, there are number of documented cases of the similar examples in online platform and offline platform. You can read from those cases. Those are effective tools for reflective learning. And in management, the case method is a established method for the learning. So, case method is an established method. So, learning from the case is a very important learning which in the principles of the management they use, but since I have told you that in urban development and urban governance the documented cases are very less, but there are number of documented cases in online platform. You can go through that, and also you can visit library to read the documented cases. So, number one is the documented cases. Second tool could be exposure visits. I have seen that in municipalities, for the decision makers, for the people who are in administration who deals with the policy and major decisions in the urban development, the exposure visits acts fantastic. If you give them a training, if you send them for a training, the classroom training to a better institute like IITs, that could be effective, but it is much more than that effectiveness if you give them a better exposure visit where the similar experiences or similar practices has been done with better effectiveness. So, that will bring some kind of change of their mindset, change of their perception, how they take and deal the urban development. So, exposure visit acts in those cases with a better effectiveness. Now, for exposure visits you have to be cautious that exposure visits should not be converted into a tourism visit. Exposure visits should be planned meticulously so that it can attain the objective of visiting the important places where the best practices have already been done, number one, and number two, that your team or the participants they learn and they share their experiences with the persons who dealt the earlier experiences or who dealt the earlier cases. So, exposure visit not only visiting the place, it is also visiting and interacting with the people concerned who have done a better project or better case or better practice. So, that is why exposure visit is another tool which you can use for continuous learning at your place. Third could be attend thematic symposium and conferences. Now, symposium and conferences, there are no dearth of number of symposium and conferences, and I tell you frankly that most of them are mostly money oriented, and the amount of content or amount of knowledge input could be less. So, please be careful and choosy in selecting thematic symposium and conferences if you want to attend some conference and symposium, or you want to send your team to some symposium and conferences. Okay. But yes, there are very good symposium and conferences that can be used as a fantastic tools and methods by which you will come to know that what others are doing in other corners of the country and other corners of the world. So, symposium and conference is another tool for the reflective and the continuous learning. Next, the national exchange programs, like national exchange meetings and programs, I have seen that where every corner of the states are represented, and you get to know that the persons from every state government, every district authorities or the urban local bodies, they are coming and attending those national exchange meetings and exchange program. So, if you are getting sometime this opportunity to attend such a national coordination meeting or national exchange meeting in any of the sector, it can be a road and transportation, it could be solid waste management, it could be a water supply, it could be a e-governance, any sector, take this platform to interact with them. I personally have worked many times in a government sector for 10-12 years in practice. So, that time I attended many such national exchange meetings and seminars, and where I took that opportunity to interact with the other counterparts who is working in the Maharashtra, what is being done at the Mizoram, what is being done at the far south in Kerala, in the Pondicherry, what is being done in the north in the Himachal Pradesh. So, that could be a very good learning opportunity. Don't treat that meeting as only the meeting. Take the meeting or consider or treat the meeting as an opportunity to learning from your peers. Next is you can also join offline and online courses if the offline and online course give you some amount of better direction for the future knowledge or the better cases. So, that is also possible that you can join online offline courses. So, Some of the resources for the reflective learning is, one is it could be a project report, completion report. Suppose you are managing a project or you are going to manage a project on the urban transportation, maybe construction of a flyover. So, you do not have to reinvent the project report of a flyover, and you do not have to write from the first word. Definitely you can refer the earlier reports. If it is not there in your urban local bodies, you can refer the state level repository like the state urban development agency or the state training agency, administrative training institutes, the state libraries, or you can visit the nearest university library where you will find similar project reports and the completion reports. From there you will get some idea that how to write a project report, what are the critical factors, what could be the cost and what are the critical factors for the costing, and what could be the design issues. So, you will get some idea. So, that will help you for formulating your projects or formulating your action plan. Next could be the, as I told earlier also, the published papers and the case study. There are number of published paper on online platform, and the case study, while you search the published paper, please prefer your search from, for example, Google Scholar. There are many other online platform where you will get published paper from the renowned publication house, and some case studies from which you will get real data and real learning. Then third resources could be national repository. We have national repository like national libraries, we have number of thematic libraries at the state level, at the national level, and now we have significant amount of e-content in national websites. Significant amount of e-content which was not there 20 years back when we graduated from the university, or when we started our work at the urban sector. That time the amount of e-content was very less, but now with the click of the button you will get all the project reports, all the minutes of the meeting, all the documented case study, all the better practices, good practices nationally and internationally both. So, use the national repository, and also I am adding the term international, use both the resources, and yes, e-resources, as I told that e-content is much more than the earlier time. So, use the e-resources significantly but judiciously. So, it is also very challenging that since you have many e-resources, okay, so it is very difficult sometimes to manage the e-resources and to choose that which e-content is relevant for your case. So, one quick tip is that before reading the e-resources or e-content, you can read the summary, you can understand whether that particular e-content or the case or the experience is relevant for your case or not, then you can read the whole thing. So, that is how you can definitely develop a practice of the reflective learning, and you can develop upon that. Now, I tell you some initiative by the Government of India. In 2007, Government of India, after considering the need for the reflective learning and the continuous learning in the urban sector, they started an initiative called peer exchange and reflective learning program, and this is coordinated by National Institute of Urban Affairs, NIUA. The link is given here. You can go to this link and you can study various resource material. Now, I just give you a little bit of background of this. When in 2004 the JNNURM program came, it was the first flagship program which conceptualized a comprehensive planning mechanism, reform based urban development agenda in India, and which has some commonalities between across the states, across the cities. So, Government of India that time they thought that to bring the excellence, to bring the better practices, why not we share the practices of the state governments or the cities which are doing well, and from that background they started this PEARL program, and the PEARL program has lot of cases documented. I am just showing you few lines from them, like this is one compendium of good practices on urban heritage in the Indian cities. I just show you some screenshots. So, you can see the best practices in the urban conservation in the world city of Ahmedabad, the legislative best practice in the Hyderabad, in the city of Jaipur, Mumbai, then there are various others area like Pondicherry, then New Delhi and the West Bengal, and again Jaipur. So, you can go through all these documents. I will share the link further link, and you can study that which could be relevant for your case. The case studies have been earmarked for the legislation, for the mapping and the technical input, for the public participation. So, there are various categories on which the case studies or the better cases are documented. Next, under this Pearl program, they have documented the compendium of good practices in urban solid waste management in Indian cities. I know that that you have already been aware about the Swachh Bharat Abhijan. We have discussed in one lecture also about the solid waste management. Now, it has been almost 1 decade that we have been discussing the solid waste management greatly, which we did not do earlier time in that way. And some of the cities, they have really done very good job in terms of their collection efficiency. Some of the municipalities, they have done better job in terms of governance mechanism and a self sufficient mechanism. Some of the municipalities, they have done like they have they could really bring some kind of revenue out of the waste. They could generate energy also, for example Chennai. So, there are a lot of similar type of examples. I show you one screenshots. So, you can see that this is the initiative of the Pune, in the city of Pune, where they have done a PPP project, public private partnership project, with one cooperative called Swachh, like this, and there are programs in Vrindavan and in Mumbai, Greater Mumbai, Chennai, Srinagar, and then Ahmedabad, and so on, Gangtok, Warangal. So, various good practices are mentioned in this compendium. So, please go through the compendium and try to identify your relevant case and study that. And in our examination also, some of the case studies could be referred, and I will share the cases and the links in your reading material. Next, they have also published the urban transportation in Indian cities. You know that urban transportation and the accessibility is one of the major thrust area. We have dealt the subject in earlier lectures. Now, some of the focused area is that how they are doing good practices in the rickshaws and the non-motorized transportation, then traffic control system, then traffic improvement project. There are projects like in Alwar, through the Alwar Vahini, it is a intermediate public transport, and then there are projects like bus shelters. So, a lot of projects are listed in this compendium. Please go through all the whole compendium and you can read. So, urban transportation and transport and accessibility is one area where every day there are some changes. Now, the practices which were called as the best practices or the better practices in 10 years back, those could be a normal standard practice for all the local bodies. So, it is not a eternal best practice or eternal case study. So, if you get some idea, some clue, you can apply that, and definitely you have to try to improve upon that, So, that is the major message from this discussion. Next is that urban water supply and sanitation in Indian cities. Here also there are a lot of good practices. I show you some screenshots in Nagpur through some PPP project, Surat formation of a dedicated cell for the water supply, Pimpri Chinchwad local bodies, Bangalore, then Jalandhar, then Trichy, Nanded, all these municipalities, Nagpur, they have done good works in the water supply and sanitation. So, you can also refer this compendium. Now, after this, I hope that you got at least the message that yes, continuous learning is essential. It is not a additional feather which is required for you for the promotion and everything. It is the essential part of your work or the practice in the urban governance and management for survival of you as an individual, for your job and then your organization. I have seen even many small municipalities with a small team of dedicated technical persons who are really doing well in the urban development through this continuous learning, and now they have established their foot, and they have the municipalities are doing very well, and some of the municipalities are listed here. But I hope that this is only tip of the ice. There are many good practice in various corners of the country, and one could be at your municipalities or your organization. So, having said that, I come to the last part, that what could be your role in this continuous learning and reflective learning. Now, one part is important here, that document your practices, whatever you are doing at your work areas. Please make a habit of documenting the practice and the process, how you are dealing the case and how you are solving the problem, how you are taking the decision, what are the critical problems and what was the earlier situation and what is the present situation. Now, one relevant question from this documentation is that, is it really possible with the limited time frame, limited manpower in the urban local bodies or the development authority? I must say yes, it is possible. Documentation and practices, it is not a different job, it is the job of a it is the integrated part of any job. If you make a habit of that and if you develop a system and process, earlier we discussed system and process, if you develop that, it does not take much time, much cost and much manpower. So, it is possible, and later on it will bring definitely the helpful references to you only. I have seen in municipalities that documented projects, the documented cases are not available because we do not document it. Once the project is done, we forget it and we jump for the next project, but there should be some e-repository or some offline repository so that this documentation are available. Second is, please expose and be exposed. Okay? So, through symposium, seminars, field visit, as I told, all these resources we discussed. So, take initiative to be exposed and take initiative to expose your team members, so that as a team we grow mutually. Then increase the knowledge wealth. I told you that in 21st century it is the knowledge poverty which is going to govern the urban sector. So, please make a wealth of knowledge. It is not the money. Money is available nowadays for the urban development. Everybody is willing to provide money. The private sector, the international agency, national agency, state agency, because you might have seen the political and the social paradigm and the structure is so that the urban development definitely brings the attention of the people, urban development brings the focus of the people. That is why now there is no dearth of as such money, but the knowledge matters, and the poor knowledge brings the bad project and not so good outcome. So, please build upon your knowledge. So, you have to build upon your knowledge wealth so that you can do better project, and once a knowledge wealth is developed, you can share that knowledge with your neighboring municipalities, to the national forum, to the international forum possible, and through that you can bring the fame, you can bring the image, you can bring the even sometimes financial resources to your municipality. Then contribute for the citizens. Now, what is the difference between the contribution and the regular job? Contribution is that something which is written in your job letter. Maybe in your job letter it is written that you have to perform some particular duty, but the continuous development, continuous growth in terms of knowledge and skills, it may not be written. So, if you develop that and if you apply and bring that knowledge for the betterment of the citizens, it will be your contribution for the citizens and for the country people, and this contribution will not only help the citizens and the organization, it will give you an enjoyment for the self fulfillment, which sometimes not available through other means. So, self fulfillment and the enjoyment is also possible by bringing new knowledge, by bringing the future direction of the country or the municipalities, which is possible. In some lectures we have discussed about the time and stress management. So, this self fulfillment through the continuous growth, through the reflective learning is possible. That is the message what I can give you right now through the reflective learning. So, having said that, I conclude today's lecture. Today we have discussed the essence of the continuous learning and reflective learning as the finest tool of continuous learning. And what is reflective learning? Reflective learning is the learning from the similar practices, similar experiences from the others, and also sharing my experiences, sharing our experiences to the other people, so that people get learning and they can apply suitably. And in reflective learning, we have told you that there are various methods and tools like exposure visits, then learning from the online platform, learning from the meetings, the national exchange meetings, all this, and there are resources I have mentioned. I have mentioned about the PEARL program by Government of India. In the PEARL program, you will find several cases are documented in various sectors. Some of the screenshots I have shown, and then after that we have discussed that your role should be proactive by documenting your process and the practice. exposing the experience and being exposed to the better experiences, increasing the knowledge wealth, so that you do not end up in knowledge poverty in some time of your career, of your life, and you can build upon this to bring fame, to bring brand image to the urban local bodies, and also to contribute to the citizens of your urban local bodies, so that you also get some amount of personal fulfillment, personal enjoyment through the course of this action. Having said that, I conclude this lecture. We have only one lecture remaining. In the last lecture, we will not discuss any specific topics, but we will make a overall summary, some doubt clearing, and we will give some references for the further reading. So, with this I conclude and end this lecture. Thank you very much.